morning, good afternoon. Well, my name is Jeff Yasinski, and I have the pleasure of being the host for our Maximo webcast today on the topic of creating BIRT reports for Maximo. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend today's webcast. I truly hope you find both the content informative and valuable to your organization. For those of you who are new to the Ontracks Maximo webcast series, we offer one educational webcast each month on a topic of interest typically suggested by our clients or past webcast attendees. The purpose is simply to provide some insight into the capabilities of Maximo. Sometimes this is a very specific function or perhaps a broader topic. If you have any suggestions for future webcasts, feel free to email them to me or Rachita. Rachita will provide her contact information at the end of the presentation. Okay, well, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Rachita Bahatia. Rachita is an applications consultant at Ontracks Canadian practice in the Edmonton office. As an experienced Maximo consultant, she has deep expertise in BIRT reporting, Maximo configuration, automation scripting, and data integration. Rachita also is an IBM certified Maximo deployment professional and has worked on various projects for clients in the oil and gas and transportation industries. I will mute the phone lines and pass the headset here over to Rachita. Please stand by.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Thanks everyone for attending this webcast, and let's get started. So today we're going to talk about BIRT reports. We're going to go over a little bit about how they're different from ad hoc reports, and then we're going to talk about creating them in a software called BIRT Designer. Once we have an overview of the BIRT Designer, we will then talk about creating a report from scratch for Maximo and how to import that report from BIRT Designer into Maximo. We will then look at modifying existing reports using BIRT. And then we're going to see a demo where we'll quickly go over all that we talk about. So we'll create a BIRT report, import it into Maximo, and edit an existing report. And in the end, we will go over any questions that you all may have. So as you all might already know, there are two main types of reports in Maximo: query-based reports and BIRT reports. Query-based reports, which are also known as ad hoc reports, they're set up in Maximo in the object structures application using the reporting type object structure. We can specify what tables we want to see on the report in the object structure, and once we've set it up, users with access can select fields from those tables that they want to see in the report. So these reports are created dynamically, and the user has the freedom to choose what fields they want to report on. But ad hoc reports are limited in the sense that they might not always show up in the perfect format. We can't do too many logical or mathematical calculations in them. We can't add table columns using subqueries. We can't do conditional formatting, etc. So this is where BIRT reports come in. BIRT reports are set up in what's called the BIRT Designer. So BIRT reports are saved in the Maximo database, and they can be ran from within multiple applications as long as we set them up for those applications. Once they're saved, we can run them from either the select action or the reporting menu, or we can set up direct print buttons for these reports on the application itself. The thing to know about BIRT reports is that they can't be edited dynamically. So we can't just choose different fields to see on the report each time we run it. But to modify a BIRT report in any way, we need to open the report design file in BIRT Designer and edit it there. So the report design file is basically just an XML file, and we don't necessarily need BIRT Designer to edit it, but since BIRT Designer gives us a much better visual of the report, it is preferred over just editing the XML file in, let's say, Notepad or any other text editor, especially for more involved changes to the report. So, and also, as we all might know, out of the box, Maximo does come with reports for almost every application. A lot of the times we don't want to start from scratch. We just want to use these existing reports to meet our needs in a better way. So these reports have their design files saved in the Maximo install directory, and we can just open them in BIRT Designer and modify them over there, and then import them into Maximo. So this is what BIRT Designer looks like. It is basically an Eclipse-based tool, and it has different windows and tabs that let us view and edit different sections of the report. As you can probably see in the screenshot, if it's clear enough, there is a layout window that provides a drag and drop interface to add fields to the report. This gives us a pretty good idea of how the report will look like in Maximo. Then there is the script tab, which lets us add our SQL query to the report. The SQL query specifies what data we'd like to retrieve on the report. We can also do more complicated processing using Java code on the script tab itself. There is also an XML tab, which we can use if we do want to make changes directly to the XML code of the report, but it is not generally recommended because making changes to the XML that we're not sure about, when we make changes to the XML and go switch tabs to the preview tab, Maximo does automatically save the report. So if there's a change that leads to an error, that sometimes might corrupt the XML. So it's better to make changes on the layout tab and the script tab and then preview the report. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the BIRT Designer in a demo in just a little bit. But before that, let's talk about creating a BIRT report. So Maximo comes with a set of templates and style sheets that can be used as a starting point for creating reports. IBM has provided these templates to ensure that the reports that we create in BIRT are consistent in terms of the format with existing Maximo reports. So, also these templates ensure that we use the scripting classes that are needed for report integration within Maximo. IBM also has a step-by-step guide on how to install and configure BIRT Designer for Maximo. So we won't go over the installation for the sake of time right now, but the documentation that IBM has given us is pretty straightforward and easy to follow. So once the BIRT Designer is set up and we have imported the templates and resources from the Maximo library, all of which is part of the installation document, we can then create a new report from scratch. So, but we are using one of the Maximo templates so that the report does look like an existing Maximo report. So as you can see in the screenshot, we do have different kinds of templates. We can create a list report, we can create a detailed report with data groups, or we could create reports with charts on it, etc. So once we have that blank template, now we need to add data to it. And to do this, we gather all the columns that we want for Maximo in the form of a SQL query. We can set up this query in SQL Server Management Studio or for SQL Server or SQL Developer for the Oracle database. It is important to remember that we don't just need a where clause for the report. Like in other Maximo applications, we do need a full SQL query. We can use subqueries, we can use join statements, anything we like to be able to see the results that we want on the report. We can also set up queries for multiple tables and add the different tables to different sections of the report. So BIRT does give us a lot more freedom as compared to query-based or ad hoc reports. The best way to do this would be to write the query and test it first using one of those SQL querying softwares and see the exact results that we get from the Maximo tables. Once we are sure we have the correct query that returns the data set that we want, we then set it up in BIRT on the scripts tab, which we'll see in a bit. Then we specify the columns for that we want to see in our report, and the layout that we want to see them in, and any other formatting that we like. So once we set all of that up, BIRT also has the functionality to preview our report from right within the software, just with a sample of data that it pulls from the Maximo database. So yeah, once we're all set up within BIRT, we can then import this report into Maximo. So reports are imported into Maximo via the report administration application, which is found in the administration module under reporting. To import a new report into Maximo, we need to specify its name and what application it should be accessed from. We can have the same report from being ran from within multiple applications. We just have to set them up for each application. We can also set the limit for the number of records the report can display. We can set up direct print buttons. All of that can be done from within the reporting administration application. And then once we have specified all of this information, we add the report design file. That was the file that we edited in BIRT. So we just go to the select action menu and import the file from there. We will also do that in our demo today. Once we've imported the report, we can now go into the application, and the application that we specified while setting up the BIRT report, and then just click on the select action menu and run the report. We also need to make sure that we have granted access to the report to any desired security groups, otherwise they won't be able to run the report. So that was about creating and adding a new report into Maximo. But before we do that, I also wanted to talk a little bit about modifying existing reports in Maximo. As I mentioned earlier, we can modify existing reports by editing their design files from within and the design files are within the Maximo directory. So we can edit those design files and import the latest versions into Maximo. But another thing that we can do is set up an existing ad hoc report in Maximo and then modify it to change the formatting or layout of the report. So this is a great option for users who don't have that much of that deep of a technical background, because once you set up your ad hoc report in Maximo, you already have your SQL query. So you already know the data set that it returns. So you don't need to go into a SQL text or SQL query tool and test your result set. You already have the code, and now you can just export the ad hoc report and open it in BIRT Designer and then edit it, change your formatting, add any other extra columns that you want to add. And then once you're done, then you can export it back into BIRT, import it back into Maximo. So how do we actually export our ad hoc report that we just created and saved? We do that using the SQL query that you see on your screen. This SQL query, we can just run it on the Maximo database for the environment where we created our ad hoc report. This query returns the XML code for the report. So we can just take the code, copy and paste it in Notepad, and then save that file with a .rpt design extension. That is the extension for all report design files. So once we've saved it with that extension, we can then open it up in BIRT, and it will show us the layout, all those different tabs with the information, and we can edit it over there. This also is helpful when in case we edit an out-of-the-box Maximo report, so a file that is in the Maximo directory, but then we end up saving our edited file in some other location, and we import it into Maximo, but we later forget where we saved the updated file, or we didn't copy it over in the Maximo directory, or for some reason we've lost that file. We can simply export the last version that we imported into Maximo by running this query on the database, and we can save it as an RPT design file, and then we have our report back. So another tip that I find useful is to use dynamic text instead of the normal text column for fields that may contain rich text formatting or HTML tags, which is usually the long description field. We will also take a look at adding this in our demo. And yeah, there are other things that we can do in BIRT. We can do things like highlighting duplicates, using Java in our report, although it is not the most straightforward to set up, but it can be quite useful. We could also do things like hide duplicates, show aggregate values, or use mathematical functions in our data. BIRT provides a lot of different functions to use, so it is definitely a very helpful tool. But always remember to take a backup of the existing report design file before editing it, because BIRT does automatically save the file when we switch tabs, especially when we are on the XML tab and then we go to the preview tab or we preview our report from any of the other tabs. BIRT does automatically save all the changes that we have made up till that point. So if there is no backup and then we have an error in our report, it's hard to go back. So yeah, now let's look at BIRT. So this is what BIRT Designer looks like. It is an Eclipse-based tool, as I said, but it has all these different windows and different tabs that help us edit different sections of the report. So right now I have two reports open, and these are both existing out-of-the-box Maximo reports. The first one is the job plan list report that you can run from the job plan application or the job plans oil application. And the second one is the job plan details report. So as you can see, the list report is a fairly simple report, doesn't have that many columns, and the details report is much more complicated. It shows the tasks, labor, everything else on a job plan. So this is the tab that we're seeing right now is the layout tab. And we do have different tabs here that we can switch to. So this is the script tab. As I said, the script tab has different sections. It has different components that let us edit different sections of the report. So, and it does have a fair amount of Java code, but when we are creating a report from scratch, and we use Maximo templates, we don't have to worry about most of this. What we do need to worry about are two components that are related to our data. And on the side, we have this Data Explorer view where we can choose our data sets. Data sets are basically they have the columns that we want to see on our reports. So in the job plan list report, we have all of these columns. So yeah, so the script that we do need to change when we are creating a new report is the open script and the fetch script. So as you can see, this is where our SQL query comes in. We basically just set up our query and then copy and paste it here. The important thing to remember is that the query that we're pasting is part of a Java code, so we are pasting it as a string in a Java code. So when we do that, we have to make sure that every time we go to a new line of the query, we are concatenating the two basically strings. Yeah. So we'll take a look at doing that right now. This is just an overview, but this is the one component that we need to edit, and the other one is the fetch script, where we just specify basically what columns we're fetching from the database. So these are the names of the columns, and they're the same names that they are in Maximo. And we just tell the report to fetch all of these columns from our query. And then we set up our columns on our data set. So when we double-click on our data set, we'll see an output columns tab over there where we can set up all the columns that we are fetching. And then once we're done, basically the last step is to drag and drop those columns onto the report. So this one's already set up, so we won't drag and drop anything over here, but we will go ahead and set up a new report. So let's say we want to see a report that shows us all the locations that have a PM record for them. So we're going to create a report that just gives us a list of all those locations and the PM number associated with them and the PM description and location description. So all of those columns on the report. And those are from two different tables, so we have to make sure that we set up our SQL query that will have all those columns. So we create the new report and we specify that we want it in the location folder. And then we can just name it PM locations, or I guess that one already, or PM location, okay. And then here we choose what template we want to use. So let's say we want a simple list report, and then we just click on Finish, and this is our template. So the good thing is that here a lot of the work is already done for us. So the layout is already set up. There is already the basic script. So we don't have to worry about all of the Java code. All we need to worry about is our SQL query. We need to replace this statement here with our SQL query. And then the report does give us the option to use a where clause as well. So now we'll just go quickly bring over our SQL query. I already do have the query set up here just to save some time. So this is the query that returns all the locations. We have joined it with the PM table. So it returns all our locations that have a PM associated with them. And if we run them in Oracle, oh, okay. I guess we need to refresh the connection here. Okay. So when we run them, we see that it returns 11 rows. So these are the 11 rows that we should see in our BIRT report once we set it up and run it. So let's take the query and take it into BIRT. So as I said before, we do need to make sure that we concatenate this, the strings. So we do want to make sure that there are no errors. And then BIRT is helpful in the sense that you will see this little red X if there are errors in your script. So that's helpful. And we're not going to use a where clause for this report right now. We could, but just for the sake of simplicity, we're not going to use it right now. So I'm going to remove that part. Okay, so once we have our SQL query set up, the next thing that we need to do is make sure that all of these columns that we have set up, we do specify them on the fetch script. So they do give us the sample of how to, the notation that we need to use. And then the thing to remember here is that we can specify what kind of data we're returning from the database. So if it's a time field, we can use get timestamp. If it's an integer, we could use get integer. If it's a string field, we use get string. So and this just helps BIRT display the field in a proper format. So if it's a timestamp field, we can choose different kinds of date formats that it would display that field in when we see the report. So so our script has location, description, PM num, PM description. So and we're just going to set all of them up as strings. So let's just say location. Because we did have two columns in our SQL query that were both returning descriptions, but from different tables, I just renamed the one as PM Desk just to avoid confusion. So yeah, we've specified all of our columns. We do want to make sure that we are getting the correct ones on the names of the rows. So yeah, once we've set this part up, and we have set our open, the next thing that we need to do is we need to add the columns that we are fetching. So all of these columns, location, description, all of these, into our data set. So right now, as you can see, our data set doesn't have any columns on it. If I try to expand it, there's nothing in it. And if I double-click my data set, I see in output columns, there's nothing right now. So I need to add all my columns that I've just received or just fetched from the database. So there's location, and then here as well, I can specify the data type, whether it's integer, string, or any other types. So there's location, description, type, and PM_num, and then PM description. So, and all of those are string for our report. So we just wanted to double check that everything looks good, and then once we know that we do have the right query and columns are set up, then the last step before we save our report is to edit the layout. So this is the default layout for a list report, but we can make any changes that we would like to it. So because we're not using any parameters for our report, we can go ahead and just delete this whole section. So I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to change and set a title for our report, just locations on PMs. Okay. And BIRT does set the right format for us because it gets that format from the Maximo library. And now here we can set up different labels for our columns. So we have location, description, type, PM, and we see that we have an extra column. We don't need it, so we can just delete that. So once we've set all of that up, we can just drag and drop our columns there. And that's it. That's pretty much all we have to do. The only thing to remember is that we do have to make all of these. So every time we add a column, we do have to edit our open script. We do have to edit our fetch script. We have to add that column to our data set, and then we have to add it to the layout. So once we know that all of that is done, we can go ahead and save our report. And now we can go and import it into Maximo. So this was just a demo environment. You can log in and go to Reporting Administration, which is under the Administration module and the Reporting. So just click on the new report, and we do have to make sure that we give it the same name that we gave to the report design file. So it's pmlocation.rpp design. and then we give it a description. We specify what application we want to run it from, and save it. And then we click on the Select Action menu, Import Report, and we import the design file that we just created. And once this is all done, we do want to make sure that we generate a request page for our report. If we don't, when we attempt to run this report from within the locations application, it will give us an error saying that there is no request page for this report. So we have to generate the request page. And the request page is basically the page that you see when you click on the Run Report button. Okay, so now we should be able to see the report from the locations application. And so this is the request page. So as you can see, these are all the columns that we had. So these are all the locations, their descriptions, their types, the PM nums, and their descriptions. So, and this was a very simple report. We could have added more detail to it, but just to save time, this is a basic list report. But now what we will do is we will use an existing report and edit that and import it back into Maximo. So let's edit the job plan list report. As we talked earlier, we can add long descriptions and make them dynamic so that we can see all the HTML tags or anything that we have that's using rich text formatting. So let's add a long description field to the job plan list report. Before we do that, as I said, we should always make sure that we do create a backup of our report design file. So I'm going to do that before I edit this report. So it's called jobplan.rpt design, and I'm just going to create a backup for that. Now I can go ahead and edit this report without worrying about losing my report to any errors. So to add a column to an existing table, we just want to click at the top of the table and then go Insert Column to the left or right, wherever we want. Actually, I'm going to place it right next to the description column. So a column to the left. And here I'm going to add a label that says long description. So now we have to go and edit our open script. So this is the existing SQL clause or SQL query that we have. As you can see, there is no long description here. So we need to make sure that we do add long description to our SQL query first. And I do have that query that has, so it's the same query. I've just added a long description column, and then I've joined it to the long description table in Maximo. So I will take this updated query and then change the existing one on our BIRT report. So always make sure that we do use the proper syntax here. So that's all the changes that we are going to make. We are not going to remove the where clause. We're not going to change anything that already is set up on this report. All we did was change the SQL query to add a long description column and just join to the long description table. So our column's name is LD text. So now we have to add this to our fetch script. And it is a string, so we are going to just use the get string operation and fetch LD text. So once we've added it to the fetch script, the next thing to do is to add it to our data set. Okay, so once we've done that, actually we can also give it a display name. Okay. And now the last step is to drag and drop our long description. Okay, oh, actually, because it is a dynamic text, we're not going to drag and drop it. We have to make sure that we use the dynamic text element of the report. So the way to do that is just right-click and then insert, and there it gives BIRT gives us the option to add a dynamic text. So to add the dynamic text column, we have to make sure that our column is in the report, so it does need to be in the data set first. Sometimes it doesn't, even when we add it, it doesn't show up here. Then we just basically have to go and refresh our data set. So we can do that. So right now we'll just select this LD text column. We just double click on it and it appears up over here. And then that's it. We just click OK and it shows up here. So in case it doesn't, then we can just select the report and click on Edit Data Binding, and then we click on this refresh button, and that makes sure that all the columns that we have on our data set, they do appear here as well. So yeah, that's all that we have to do. So now we save this, and because this report was created in an earlier version, it will give you a warning, and then we can just click OK. It will upgrade the report to the current version. So just click OK there. And now we import this report into Maximo. So we can close that one and go back to our report administration application. And because this is an existing report, we don't need to create a new one. We're just going to search for it. And this is the job plan oil application. So we're going to import the updated version of this report into the job plan oil application. We don't need to specify any of the other information because it's already there. So we just click on Select Action, Import Report, and find our design file. And because it is an already existing, it is a report that already exists on the database, it will tell us that we're overriding it. And we just click on OK. And there was a resource file for this report, so we still want to use that. That's a file that's needed by Maximo to run this report. So we click on OK. We want to maintain the original resource file. And then we save. And then just to make sure, we're going to generate the request page. Okay, so once the request page has been generated, we should be able to see a report in our job plan oil application. And to test, I actually have 2 job plans that do have long descriptions that have bullets on them. So, okay, let's take a look at that. So when we run our query for the job plan, the same query that we have in our job plan report, we can see on our database that the LD text column has these HTML tags on them. So those are the 2 job plans that we do want to see. They shouldn't have HTML tags. They should show the formatting correctly on the report. So we run our report, job plan list. And as you can see, it's not showing for those 12 mph read and 40 mph read. It's not showing those HTML tags. It is showing bullets. So it is showing the correct rich text formatting. So yeah, that was how we added dynamic text. And yep, that's it for the demo. That concludes our webcast. Thank you so much for all those who attended. I hope that this was helpful to your organization. If you would like a copy of the presentation, please feel free to send an email to myself using the contact information on the screen that I will just display in 1 second here. Also, if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me by email or by phone, and we can talk for any doubts that you might have. Again, thank you so much for your time and interest, and I look forward to meeting you all again on the next webcast.